is going to look better and better, and as time goes on, he's going to be thought of as not a nut, but a man who told it like it is and was vilified, as what usually happens when people tell it like it is in this country. Thank you.
That gets the kids fed. I'm delighted you're such a wonderful, warm, open, giving, altruistic bastard. Now this.
God bless you, Barry Gray.
Thank you. What did I do?
Well, for one thing, you broke my heart, if I may, and forgive me, I'm a little nervous on the radio. When you spoke out about the little girl, if I may, from Mount Sinai.
Yeah.
I cried my heart out, and I prayed to God, and I said, if only Mr. Gray could hear me.
Thank you.
Because my life could have been saved if I had gotten media attention. Second of all, I want to commend you on drawing attention to so many public issues.
Well, thank you very much.
The children in their home like that for months, my God Almighty. I mean, the caller that said he didn't believe it, well, things like that happen every day in this world.
And that's what he had to add, that he didn't believe it.
Well, sir, I mean, the twisted things are people just of their hearts, they don't want to believe it. It's a miracle that the children are still alive.
I know. Thank you for calling. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
391-2800, Susan in New York. Susan. Lee in New York.
Hi, Barry.
Hi.
Perhaps you do know the Teddy Roosevelt famous quote, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out where the strong stumbled or how the doer could have done it better. The credit belongs to the man who is in the arena, his face marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs and falls short again and again. There is no effort without error."
Where did he say that?
It's a famous Teddy Roosevelt quote, and there's a couple of more lines that go into it. It's wonderful. I got it originally as a presentation when I graduated from Army Information School at Fort Slocum many years ago. It is now quoted in the Charlton Heston book, In the Arena, so I copied it again.
Well, it's wonderful of you to call, and I thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mike in New York, tell us something.
Yes, I'd like to tell you that I think that those deputy sheriffs whose lives were threatened by those illegal aliens and who responded should be given a congressional medal. And I think, Barry...
Scott, I really appreciate that call. I really appreciate it. Thank you. We've got two guys out there that have been talking about Pat Buchanan. He's been out of the race now for, about 3 or 4 weeks? And they're still chattering away. I am looking forward, by the way, to the Charlton Heston book when it comes out. He's an old friend, and I'm sure he will say many of the things that Pat Buchanan has been trying to say for some years and not said nearly as well, and said them quite properly. My phone number is 391-2800. Everybody but nuts need apply. I'd love to talk with you. The tragedy that has affected Washington, but nonetheless has already prompted calls to President Clinton wondering who is going to be appointed to the job that Ron Brown held. And Mike McCurry, the press secretary, has said, if you get hold of anyone here at the White House who engages in that kind of speculation, tell them on my behalf that they ought to be fired. The fact is, crassly political, that before the tragic crash, the Republican side of the aisle was trying to get rid of the Office of Commerce. I don't think that will continue, but it may abate for a while. But ultimately, of course, if the Republican majority continue, they would like to abolish the Office of Commerce. I'm not familiar with all sides of the issue, but that was the action before the crash in Bosnia. We're on 391-2800, Robert in New York.
It's Robert in Queens, Mr. Gray.
Yes.
On those children that were left by their parents in Brooklyn?
Yes, sir.
There was 4 children?
Yes, sir.
Now, what were their ages, Mr. Gray?
I have it in front.
I know the oldest is 10.
Just 1 second. I've got it right here. 10 and 7 and 6 and 4.
Here's my point, Mr. Gray.
Yeah.
The 4-year-old doesn't go to school, but the 6, 7, and the 10, they go to school. What happened to the teachers? Don't they keep track of attendance?
That's what Francis said earlier, and I would agree with you, but I really...
It's terrible.
I agree with you. I keep asking, who's watching the store? Who's in charge of all these things?
Can I ask you something, Mr. Gray? This is on sort of the same subject about schools.
Sure.
When Mr. Giuliani became mayor, right, he appointed Herman Badillo to see what's going on in Livingston Street, right?
Okay, 110 Livingston Street.
Yes. Do you know of anything that he came up with in almost 3 years?
No, I don't believe that Mr. Badillo is doing that at all.
I don't think he's doing anything. This is terrible.
No, I don't think the appointment ever took place as such. I don't think he's ever been a full-fledged member of the Giuliani office, bulwark, campaign, cabinet, whatever.
Can I ask you something, Mr. Gray?
You just did.
No, I'm going to ask you one more other thing. I'm sorry.
Sure.
You're going to be speaking to the mayor, right?
If he ever arrives.
Could you ask him if Mr. Badillo is involved with this?
Yeah. Why are you curious?
Well, because, there's like 3 school children. They never went to school. They were abandoned by their parents for like 3
But why are you angry at Mr. Badillo?
I don't know whether he's working for the city or...
I don't think he is.
Because I've heard him on other radio shows, and he's supposed to be checking into this. And
when did you hear Mr. Badillo on a radio show?
Oh...
I've known Herman a long time, and I don't know that he's been making statements about the school system.
I think I heard him maybe 3 or 4 months ago, Mr. Gray. I'm going to be honest with you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Edith, there's a guy who doesn't like Herman Badillo. Edith in Brooklyn, 391-2800. Edith?
Hi, I'm really pleased to be speaking to you so rapidly. I was in my car and I came running upstairs. I'm a licensed social worker, and I think that the problem with these kids dates back to the agency that never followed up since 4 months ago, when they had the notice that there was something wrong in the home.
Oh, I agree with that.
And the reason for this, as far as I can tell, is that the people that are hired as caseworkers have absolutely no training that's really academic.
I agree.
And they have and you can't get into the agency unless you're willing to start out at the bottom line. And
they also don't know how to use a telephone.
They don't have...
It's really very simple.
I mean, it's a pathetic kind of a situation. They don't have professionals, and then they have their own quote-unquote academy, which you didn't have to pass the test until the new gentleman took over.
That would be Nicholas Scapetta?
Yes.
Okay.
Up until that time, you could go to the academy, sit through a class, and it wasn't a real academy and it wasn't a real class, because I know people who were involved in it.
We know all that. Now what do we do about it?
Well, I think that the first thing that has to be done is that I think that social workers have to be licensed and accountable. You have to deal with trained people.
No, I agree with all that. Now I agree with you. What do we do?
Well, I think that the first thing that you do is you fire the people who haven't been doing their jobs.
Okay, I agree.
The second thing that I think that you do is that you make sure that there are foster care facilities that are available, because part of the problem is that there aren't facilities for these kids. The next thing that I think that you have to do is that you have to make sure that judges understand and take into consideration that the best place for a child is a safe home.
Well, I agree. But those are all things that we know about. Now what do we do? There's no one at the Child Welfare Agency. We can't get Nick Scapetta on the phone. I've talked to him before, but I haven't heard from him in months. What do we do tonight?
I don't think that there's anything that we can do tonight.
Okay, thank you. Ann, Long Island, you're on WOR.
Hi, Mr. Gray.
Yeah.
I agree with your horror of this story and so many others.
No, but the worst part of the horror is the people that have advice that isn't advice.
Right. Well, I was wondering also, the guy that called before and said he didn't believe the story, I thought he was trying to say, I thought maybe you misunderstood him, because I thought he was trying to say...
I hope so.
Well, yeah, well, he was saying that he didn't believe the story as told, and I was having my doubts. Here's this landlady. For 4 months, she doesn't know there's anything amiss in an apartment that she rents. And one time she's saying, I used to know the kids were there because I heard them playing. Then I didn't hear them playing anymore. And then the next verse she's saying, I thought everything was all right because I didn't hear them. So where the hell was she until something leaked?
Well, she said that she went to work early in the morning and came home late at night.
Yeah, right.
That's the comment.
Yeah, I know. But, one time she's saying she hears them and everything's okay. Then she doesn't hear them and everything's okay. I
agree with you, and I'm glad you pointed it out. I agree that there are many, many, many questions that must be asked. But the first question I would ask is, where are the parents?
Yeah.
Where the food for the...
If you really want to change, you have to work at it. Work very hard, and above all, want it. Now, all right. right, the sermon is over. You may come back into wherever it was you were listening before I drove you out. I know that people are thinking about more important things than what I had to say. They're thinking about the guide to the first 100 days, who will benefit, who will be hurt. Newt Gingrich's Revolution, Newsweek magazine calls it. Some of the magazines, most of the media, really is still shell-shocked over the great November 8th victory. A victory not of the Republican Party, but a victory of the American people. The American people who said, wait a minute, enough of this mad obsession with socialism. Enough of turning our backs on the founding fathers who gave us a great republic. Yes, I pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic for which it stands. This is a republic, my friends. Because it is a republic, James Madison, who wrote the Federalist Papers, James Madison, who had more to do with putting together the Constitution than any one single person, although he had a lot of help, used the word Republican 211 times. Because it is a Republican form of government. Look it up if you don't believe me. And the only reason I'm saying that is I've talked to some Republican politicians. I've said, why do you guys not use the word Republican more often? And they said, we are. I said, yes, you are now. But 20-some-odd years ago when I came to New York, I was the only one who used that word. You guys were running away from it like it was a plague. And you know why? Because politicians are opportunists. There are very few of them who have conviction, very few of them who have principles they would stand by. Who was it in American history who said, I would rather be right than be president? I know his name, do you? Or is history so passé? Is it so passé that nobody learns those things anymore? At any rate, these are great times for all of us, really, not just people like myself who feel vindicated. And I've taken a lot of criticism, a lot of abuse over the years for my beliefs. But apparently, time has caught up. And people now are saying, no, we want less government. We want to be able to be in more control of our lives. We talk about the First Amendment, of course. We talk about the Second Amendment. We talk about the Fifth Amendment. There are certain amendments we talk about. The Fourth Amendment. Very seldom do you hear about the 10th Amendment. Does anybody know what the 10th Amendment is? 28 words. But the 10th Amendment is coming back in style. And that's good. That's what our founding fathers had intended. At any rate, if you want to make contact, if you want to be heard, if you want to be someone who says, hey, the first day of 1995 of the Bob Grant Show, I was heard. Hey, there's a good resolution for some of you. If you want to make a resolution, make this resolution. That when your heart starts pounding and your mouth gets dry, when you feel as though a cotton field has been planted, because you get queasy, butterflies, just thinking about speaking on 50,000 watts of WABC powerful radio, say, no, wait a minute. Other people are being heard, why not me? I can talk just as well as anybody else. Why not me? So if you've been holding off only because of stage fright or mic fright or phone fright or whatever fright you want to call it, say to yourself, no. Time is all that I have, and time is running out. I'm going to use that time. This time, I'm going to be heard.
Pleasure to meet you, and Bob, Happy New Year, and a successful one. May it be half as good as the one you had last year before that, with the election of Governor Whitman and George Pataki. Now to get back to brass tacks, welcome home, And I believe that you made a statement about I'd rather be right than be president. I believe it was John C. Calhoun. I may be wrong. I thought I knew my history.
Well, it's a good guess, but it's not right.
About what era was it? About the same time. But what I want to get back is that with the day, I never thought I'd live to see the day when communism went down a defeat, and the Democrat who gave us the great society went down to defeat. I'm a lifelong Democrat, but I'm not anymore. I guess I'm just quite conservative. But it's a happy day in my life, and above all, I'm talking to the best talk show host on the East Coast.
Well, I appreciate that, John. I thank you, and a Happy New Year to you. Here's Richard checking in on the line from Manhattan. Hello, Richard.
Hi, Bob. It's great to talk to you, and it's great to hear from you again. We missed you for a while, and I'm really glad that you're back. I just wanted to give you two suggestions that I think are soon-to-be great Republican governor. I emphasize that word Republican and great. I'd like to give him two suggestions, which maybe if you speak to him, you can pass on to him. First is if he wants to boost income and boost sales and boost tax revenues in New York State, I think he should immediately think about dropping the New York State and New York City and cities around the state sales tax on clothing. I think this would immediately give the economy a boost, and it would allow New Yorkers to stay in New York instead of having to go across the river to do their clothing shopping and, of course, buying other things while they're there. The second thing that I think I'd like to see him do is I'd like to see him issue an unconditional state pardon to the murderer Thomas Grassley, so that he will be allowed to be freed from New York State prisons and immediately extradited to Oklahoma, where he can be executed for his heinous crimes.
He doesn't have to give him a pardon. All he has to do is to grant Oklahoma's request to have possession prior to New York. And that wouldn't mean that he was pardoning Grasso. That would mean that he was allowing the extradition of Grasso back to Oklahoma, and it would relieve the New York taxpayer, and Grasso would get what he really deserves, and that, of course, is the death sentence.
Absolutely. The problem I would have with not pardoning him is that I think the ACLU might turn around and say that it was not within his power to do that. Okay, but it is certainly within his power to pardon him for his crimes in New York State. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I think what you're saying is that you think the ACLU is more powerful than what it is, and I hope you're wrong, but I thank you for the call. Here's another John. How do you like that? John, this time from Brooklyn. Hello, John from Brooklyn.
Hey, Bob. How you doing, Bob? I just want to thank for your vacation. Look, I'm so nervous, but nice going on your vacation. It's no replacement for Bob Grant. I just want to tell you. The previous caller said just East Coast, nationwide. I really mean it.
John. Thank you.
You are great. What I want to ask you is, what do you think of these Russians coming into the city and getting welfare at 65, 66, 67 years old, and they're getting like $684 a month? And
I think it's an outrage. I think it's an outrage, and we've got to do something about that, whether they're people from Russia, wherever they're from. As a matter of fact, a report confirmed what I've been warning people, and that is individuals come in as visitors, they get visas, and they overstay their visas. At least 50%, ladies and gentlemen, from our How Does This Grab You file, at least 50% who come here ostensibly, allegedly as visitors, wind up staying here forever.
That's right, sir. And not only that, there's 52 students in NYU getting free college tuition. Now, who the heck is paying for this? I can't comprehend this at all. I mean, that's $23,000. I got a 16-year-old son, and I've got to get all kinds of financial aid to get this boy into. And by the way, he listens to you and he loves you, sir. But I can't comprehend this. 52 kids, that's over $100,000 for each one. Who is paying for this? I can't understand this, sir. I really can't, Bob.
Well, we've got hopefully with a new team, not only on the federal level but on the state level. Hopefully, we'll correct some of these idiotic mistakes we've been making. Right here on WABC, this is Bob Grant, and what's on your mind, huh?
Hi, Ed Davis for AMCO. You pull your car out of the garage, and there it is, a little puddle on the driveway right where the transmission was. Where did it come from? And what does it mean? It's like those psychology tests, where you're supposed to look at it and decide if it's a butterfly or a pizza or whatever, and it just looks like a blob to you. The truth is, leaks can come from lots of places, and it doesn't necessarily mean a big transmission job. At AMCO, they'll put your transmission through the most complete diagnostic checkup in the industry. If it's a small problem that just looks like a big one, they'll know. Fact is, half the cars serviced by AMCO dealers don't need a new transmission. Go to AMCO now. Chances are that little leak doesn't have to be a big drain on your wallet. AMCO. AAMCO.
To speak to the AMCO dealer nearest you, call 1-800-776-4870. That's 1-800-776-4870.
You've each been chosen because you're the best. This is a big operation with big risks and big rewards, but it's very different than anything you've ever done before. First, there's only a 50-50 chance of success. Second, there's no backup, no support, no one to bail you out of trouble. And third, you've got to bluff your way in and then out again. And if you're caught, it's on the spot, execution. But if you succeed, you'll be heroes in the eyes of the world. We are going to assassinate Saddam Hussein.
Shadow over Babylon. Many countries wanted it done, but no one country would dare attempt it until now. Shadow over Babylon. Fact meets fiction in a novel so authentic, you'll think it really happened. Shadow over Babylon by David Mason. The most spellbinding assassination thriller since Day of the Jackal. A story so close to the truth that it reads like tomorrow's headlines. Shadow over Babylon by David Mason. It's the electrifying new novel you simply won't be able to put down. Now a Signet paperback.
All right, let's get back to our telephones here on the Bob Grant Show on WABC. Are you thrilled to know that Slick Willie shot 2 ducks? Yeah, he killed 2 ducks today during a 2-day vacation in his home state. By the way, the biggest duck calling contest in the world is held in Arkansas, Stuttgart, Arkansas. That is a Manitoba mallard. What it's doing here in our studio in Midtown Manhattan is beyond me. Anyway, Slick Willie bagged 2. He killed 2 ducks. I wonder what he's going to do with them. Do you suppose Madame Hillary would know what to do with them? Anyway, tomorrow he returns to Washington and the first Republican-controlled Congress since the Eisenhower administration. David of Irvington checking in on the line. Happy New Year, David.
Happy New Year, Bob, and it's a great pleasure to speak to you, and I wish you and all the Bob Grant listening audience out there all the best for 1995. Bob, I just thought I would call and share with you and your audience that while you were on vacation, my mother passed away. She lived a long time, but she had a hideous form of sugar diabetes.
Oh.
And she lived to the ripe old age of 70. And because you and Jay and all of my fans have been so gracious, I thought it more than appropriate, to call you and share with you. And, in this world of craziness and insanity, I always knew that I had friends and supporters out there, but it's during this time, when you really get a chance to stop and think, about how many friends and supporters you do have. And my church was so gracious to me, and my pastor gave a beautiful eulogy. And when I called Roy Ennis and informed him of my mother's passing, about 3 days later, he was there to speak at the wake.
Oh.
And it was just a very touching set of days, and I must say that I am truly at peace, because I'm a religious person, and during the time that she took a turn for the worse, I prayed and I asked God that if he should desire to take her home, please let me be at peace, because, it had gotten so that we just couldn't stand to see her suffer. And,
you said she had diabetes. It wasn't late onset in her case, was it? She must have had it for a long time.
Well, she did have sugar for a long time, but it wasn't until a couple of years, when it really began to set in. Now,
have you been checked? Diabetes is an inherited disease. Have you been checked, David?
No, I haven't. I've been checked for blood pressure, And thank God, that the blood pressure is normal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Even though you listen to talk radio, the blood pressure is normal.
Yes. It is. And even though I've been, in some battles with the politically correct from time to time.
Yeah, well...
it's still normal.
David, I appreciate your call. My sincerest condolence. And you're a great guy, David. What more can I tell you?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, man.
Michael, you're on WABC. Michael was not there. Okay, let's try John. John, hello.
Hey, welcome, Bob. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I would like to answer that quote of yours that I would rather be right than be president.
Yes.
Well, that was Henry Clay.
You think so, huh?
I'm very sure of that.
Why do you say you're very sure that you hesitated?
No, I just finished studying in American history class.
Yeah, and it said that in it said that?
Yes, it did.
Really? Show me where it said that.
Well, he said it to a speech in the Senate.
Really?
Yeah, in 1850.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm not going to give the answer till later.
Okay.
All right?
Okay, thanks a lot, Bob.
Thank you. Here's Anthony checking in right now. Hello, Anthony.
Hi, Bob. Welcome back.
Thank you.
And nobody can fill your shoes like Jay Diamond. Bob, I'm sorry to hear about David of Overton's mother. She passed away. And at least she's with the Angels and with my mother, Viola of Coney Island. And, Bob, I agree with you 100%. Oh, first of all, I agree with that other guy about these Russians. It's ridiculous already. But, I definitely agree with you about this New Year's Eve malarkey, and I'm definitely the humbug of New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, and it's just an excuse for every jerk to go out and get drunk. Why do they go out and celebrate? I ask rhetorically. Because, to me, New Year's Day means it's the first of the month, so now I'm 2 months behind instead of 1 month behind. So why celebrate? I mean, now I'm 2 months behind, so now I'm off to a good start. It's just ironic that they celebrate. You know what I'm saying? So that's basically it. Welcome back. I'm sorry about David's mother. And
all right, I thank you. On WABC, here's George checking in from, let's see, George, are you there?
I'm from South Salem, Bob.
George from South Salem. Yes, George.
Well, I wanted to welcome you back and Happy New Year. And it's good to hear your voice again on WABC. But I was a little disappointed why you were waxing so melancholy during your opening monologue.
That sounded melancholy?
Yes, in a way it did. I don't think that all New Year's resolutions are the result of reflection on bad habits or flaws that need change.
Oh, really? Well, then explain to me what you think.
Oh, I think that many times the resolutions are formed from hope and a determination to do better next year or this year.
Well, why do we have to wait until New Year's to say, oh, I'm going to do better? I'm going. If you know, when did you find out you weren't doing as well as you could?
I
on January 4th of. The year concluded on June 5th, on September 16th. No, my point is, why wait until New Year's to start doing the thing you should have been doing? And who keeps their resolutions anyway?
You're absolutely right, Bob. That there's a determination to do better. I think on New Year's Eve, it just is one of those things. I guess you're caught up in the whole thing, and maybe I'll make a resolution to call Bob Grant more often and get my facts straight. But
now that's a good resolution. I second that.
Don't you think that's a good resolution?
I do, but remember the quote, "Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof."
Yes, and also the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Well, yeah, we can throw that in there too. Next thing you know, we'll be a stitch in time saves 9. We better be careful here. On WABC, Vinny, hello. Vinny's not there. Okay, let's try Jim checking in on the line. Hello, Jim.
Hi, Bob. Happy New Year and welcome back. I'd like to speak to you about how the press is unfairly treating Newt Gingrich as he's coming out. Just yesterday in the Daily News, there was a cartoon on the editorial page it showed a little kid sitting in front of a TV set, and he's shouting out to his mother. He says, "Ma, a newt just ate Kermit the Frog." And there was a little sign above the TV. It said PBS. This is an obvious reference to Gingrich's proposal to cut funding to certain PBS programs. But, you know, the thing is, shows like Barney, Sesame Street, and shows similar to that make so much in revenues and advertising that they can pay for their programming. They don't have to rely on government funding to program their programs. And this is what Newt is talking about. But naturally, the press is kind of portraying him to be this mean, nasty guy, like they did with the Christmas cover on Newsweek. And I think this is what he's going to be in for. But I think Newt is a very tough guy. He's going to stand up to these people, and I hope he doesn't let it get to him.
Well, I concur. Thank you.
Arbitron's #1 AM radio station in New York, Long Island, and the USA.
I saw the CEO, the great Teddy Lukakis. We will be doing, in answer to many requests, inquiries, I should say. Yes, we will be doing another leukemia broadcast from the famed Rio Diner. I believe we'll be doing that on Saturday, March 10th. We'll be doing it at a later hour than we usually do, probably beginning at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, because of the fact that I have that network program I do on Saturday from 10 until 1. At any rate, while I was there, I encountered two of the famed Santoro brothers. It's a large clan, and the major domo apparently is a fellow whose nickname is Tootsie Santoro. He was there with his baby brother Bucky, and Tootsie said, "We're a well-known clan in the state of New Jersey, and I want everybody to know that the Santoros of Woodbridge wish everyone a healthy, happy New Year." I pass that along. That is the high point of today's broadcast. Let's talk to United States Congressman Jay Boehner, Republican of Ohio, who should be on our telephone right now. And, Congressman, you say there will be more reform. I think this is your quote. More reform in 24 hours in this country is seen in decades. The congressional session, of course, begins tomorrow. That's quite a statement. What do you have in mind specifically?
Well, I don't think there's any question that the American people will see more change in this Congress in one day than what we've seen in probably almost 50 years all put together. And part of what we're going to do is what we guaranteed the American people during the election cycle we would do, and that's to make 8 major reforms in Congress. It's important to change Congress because if you don't reform the United States Congress, Congress's ability to change Washington, frankly, is rather limited. And what we want to do is to make the House more open. We want it to be more accountable and more responsible to the American people who sent us here. And so what we're going to do tomorrow is we're going to reduce the number of committees. We're going to reduce the number of subcommittees. We're going to cut the committee staff by over 1/3. We're going to eliminate taxpayer-funded special interest caucuses. We're going to ban commemorative legislation from coming to the floor, like National Pizza Month or National Asparagus Day. We actually spend about $300,000 in that type of activity. It takes up literally 25% of the legislation that moves through Congress is this silly stuff. And that doesn't include all of the time that members and their staff and the floor staff take in putting all of this together. But beyond that, we're going to make a lot of other changes, like applying all of the laws that apply to the private sector apply to members of Congress as well. For far too long, Congress has exempted themselves from these laws, lived above the law, and as a result, we never feel the weight of the law. And so the inequities or problems that there may be, we never really get to see. We're going to eliminate proxy voting, absentee voting in committees.
I was about to ask you about that. When I heard that was in the works, I said, hooray, these guys mean business.
Well, we just think that if it's important enough to have a committee, and the committee is going to actually mark up a bill and move it to the floor, the members ought to be there to vote on it. It's kind of a novel idea. But because we've had this proliferation of the number of committees and the number of subcommittees, and the number of assignments that members are required to have, like my case in this current Congress that ends today, I'm on 3 committees and 9 subcommittees. Physically can't be there. And so we're going to reduce committee assignments for members so that they really do, in fact, have to be there. And by outlawing proxy voting, they're going to have to be there in order to move these committees, move these bills out of committee. We're going to have term limits for chairman of committee, 3 terms. If for any committee or subcommittee, 3 terms, and you're out. No more Dan Rostenkowskis and Henry Gonzalez's and others who get on a committee, they get into the chairman slot, and they seem like they're forever building this huge power base. But 2 other issues that are, I think, real important is that no more committees can be closed to the public. Every committee will be open to the public and to the press unless it involves an issue of national security or a serious personnel matter where someone's integrity may be brought into question. This is real important. The last time we had the largest tax increase in American history, the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Mr. Rostenkowski, decided that they were going to close the meeting, and this whole tax bill was done in the dark. And we're not going to have that anymore. And the last real big point is that we're going to have the first audit in the history of the United States Congress. We're going to do an audit to look at all of the financing, all of the money that's moved around here over the last 10 years, look at our services, look at all of the activities here, and to help us make sure that nothing shows up on our watch that we weren't expecting, and secondly, to help us reform the way we actually do our business here to make it more efficient and, frankly, to make it a whole lot less expensive than it is today.
Well, this is all music to my ears, and I'm sure to most people. As a matter of fact, in reading accounts of the reactions of people all over the country and their expectations, they are expecting a great deal from the Republicans from this 104th Congress. And by virtue of your delivering, I'd say the Grand Old Party will become the majority party, in fact, in America. And as a longtime Republican, I hope that happens.
Well, I think that you've got a very good point. The central issue of what we have to do here over the next several months to connect with a majority of the Americans in a real solid way is to rebuild credibility. And that's the essence of what we're trying to do. And we do that by doing what we promised we would do. We do it by actually enacting what we told the American people what we would do. It hasn't happened from a political party in a long time. But you're about to see the People's House here in Washington actually do what we told the American people we would do, and we're going to do it day in and day out and prove to the American people that they should begin to trust us in the Republican Party here in Washington.
Congressman Boehner, you talked about the term limits for chairmanship. That's different than term limits for actual membership in the United States Congress. I'm opposed to term limits. I think that the people acted wisely on November 8th and showed that we don't need term limits. But anyway, having said that, what about that promise, which I believe is part of the contract with America?
Well, I signed on to the contract and frankly helped put it together. I, too, am opposed to term limits. I understand people's frustration, but if you looked at what happened in 1992, look at what happened in 1994, it's pretty clear that the American people are doing a whale of a good job all by themselves, and having artificial term limits really isn't necessary. But I signed the contract because I believe in bringing issues to the House floor for a debate. That was the commitment in the contract, to bring these 10 bills to the floor for a debate and a vote, an up or down vote, within 100 days. I want to bring term limits to the floor of the House. I want to have a debate and let the chips fall where they may. I'm not afraid to get down there as an opponent of term limits and argue in the debate the merits of the case. The people in my district back in Ohio know that I'm opposed to term limits. I'm not afraid to tell people where I stand on issues. And what this will do will be to force some members out of the dark, and it will allow the American people to hold their member of Congress responsible for their votes and for their position. It will force these issues out in the public in these districts around America, and I think that's real healthy for our political system.
Well, that's really the bottom line. What is healthy for our political system? What will benefit the American people? And it looks as though there's a lot of excitement in Washington, D.C. I have many friends who've been in the Congress. One recently retired, very successful, long-term Republican. I don't believe you had a chance to know him because you came in 1992 and that he left. He was succeeded by Bobby Franks. I'm talking about Matt Rinaldo.
No, I spent 2 years with him. I was elected in 1990.
Oh, 1990? Okay, then
and
you
so
did.
I
You
spent
did
a couple
know
years
Matt.
with him.
And he told me, he said, you know, one of the reasons I'm retiring is, he says, Tom Foley rules with an iron hand. He says, as a Republican, I can get no legislation. I can't, it doesn't have a chance of getting anywhere. I think guys like Matt, if they knew what was going to happen November 8th of 1994, maybe they would have stayed in.
Well, I know when I got here in January of 1991, just 4 years ago, I know how members like Matt and others felt who had been here for some time. They were defeated. Didn't believe that they could win, had put up all of these years with having everything shoved down their throat by the liberal majority. And what I and other members attempted to do was to convince our members that we could win. Even as a minority, if we worked together and stood up for what we believed in, we could win. Mm-hmm. And I was involved in exposing the House bank scandal and the House restaurant scandal and the House post office scandal. And part of that was to get the American people to look at their Congress and get them to understand that it was time to hold Congress accountable for what they did and they didn't do. And to some extent, it worked. Got to give ample credit to Bill Clinton and his efforts over these last 2 years in bringing Congress more into focus. But the thing one of the big dynamics you'll see change over the course of this year is that it will become clearer to the American people that the real power in Washington to change this government is here on Capitol Hill and not necessarily at the White House.
Indeed, indeed. Well, good talking with you, and I wish you and the American people good success.
Bob, thank you.
That's Congressman John Boehner of Ohio, and in talking to Republican members of Congress now, as opposed to talking to them before, you could hear the exuberance in their voice, because now they have a chance to do something. Before, they were just voices in the wilderness. The American people have spoken, and that's what this is all supposed to be about. The American people speaking, electing their representatives, and hopefully their representatives doing what the American people want, and at times doing not what the American people want, but what the American people need. That's leadership. Okay, let's swing over to the Metro Traffic Control Center, and the almost totally departed, but now he's back, Joe Nolan.
Well, it was a long 2 weeks.
It was such a long 2 weeks that some people actually were on the verge of missing you.
2 weeks.
Hi, Bob.
Yes.
I'm proud to say that as a kid growing up on Long Island, my mother's kitchen was wall-to-wall Bob Grand Country.
Well, thank you.
I just called about the issue of abortion. A couple of callers earlier, you raised the issue of the idea that kids are born that are abused, born into terrible situations out there in this world, and that I guess somehow that might be a reason why abortion ought to be legal or might not be such a bad thing. And the problem I have with that argument, Bob, is that if let's just, for instance, assume we're in the delivery room and a baby is born, and somehow we can look into a crystal ball and see that this kid is going to have a tough life. This kid is going to be abused. This kid is going to go through a lot of things, maybe become a crack addict and die, whatever. Once that baby is born and delivered, we would never say, because of this stuff that we know can happen, we now have a right to kill this baby. Why? Because once it's born, we all agree it's a human life, and to kill it is murder, no matter what is going to happen down the road in terms of a bad childhood or anything else. So that argument that you raised to the person, you raised the argument, you said, what are people who are opposed to abortion, how do they respond to that? I think the response is that argument itself doesn't get you anywhere. You still have to address the issue as to whether or not you think this is a human life or not. If you think it is a human life, then clearly there's no justification for killing it, no matter how bad the circumstances are going to be. So, personally, Bob, I'm not sure where I stand on the issue. It seems to me I'm a conservative and a libertarian. And another issue that came up with that caller was, the issue that always comes up. Well, who the heck knows when this thing that's growing in a woman's body becomes a human life? I don't know. You don't know. Nobody really knows for sure. But it seems to me that if there's a doubt, and there clearly is, there's a doubt in my mind, that we ought to resolve the issue if the liberty interest of a woman to control her body is on one side of the scale, and the potentiality that we are snuffing out a human life, and that's a possibility, is on the other side of the scale, that we ought to err on the side of defending the human life. Because after all, we do have laws that enable a woman to choose whether or not to engage in conduct that is going to...
You're very clever, Adam. You're very clever, but you don't fool me for 1 minute. With all your verbal legerdemain, you don't fool me for 1 minute.
Wasn't trying.
Yeah, you weren't trying? My foot, you weren't trying. My foot, you weren't trying. You were trying, and you almost succeeded. You might have succeeded in fooling a lot of people. The fact of the matter is, what you said has absolutely nothing to do with the issue here. The issue being, do these people have a right to go in and shoot people?
Oh, absolutely not.
Well, then what the heck are you talking about?
Because
you talk about the sanctity of human life, but you don't seem to care about these people who are murdered by maniacs like this John Salvi.
I think what this guy did and what that other guy did is pure
And by the
murder.
way, you're no libertarian. Don't worry, you'll never be a libertarian.
Well, Bob, don't...
No,
say
you'll
that.
never be a libertarian, Adam. Because if you were a true libertarian, you wouldn't have come to the convenient conclusion you came to.
It wasn't a conclusion, Bob. It was something to provoke a response, which you didn't address. You addressed